My name is Clara Hayes, and I'm 33 years old. I've always been the one who keeps her head down, works hard, and does her best to get through life without making too much noise. But there comes a time in everyone's life when you have to reach out, when you have to admit you can't carry everything alone. For me, that moment came on a rainy Thursday evening in late October. The sky had been gray all day, heavy clouds pressing down on the city like a weight. By the time I trudged up the narrow steps to my sister Vanessa's townhouse, the rain had soaked through my jacket and left my hair plastered to my cheeks. My shoes squeaked with every step, and my stomach churned with nerves. I hadn't asked anyone for help in years. Not since Mom passed. Not since Dad moved away. I had convinced myself I could manage, paying my bills late but somehow still paying them, juggling 3 part-time jobs, scraping through the weeks one exhausted breath at a time. But that week I couldn't. My car had broken down, the repair costs swallowing what little savings I had left. Rent was due in 5 days, and the landlord had already slipped a warning notice under my door. I had no more rope left to cling to. So, against every instinct, I had come here, to my older sister Vanessa. Vanessa, the successful one. The one who walked into every room like it belonged to her. The one who always had money for dinners out, new clothes, vacations, and cocktails with her work friends. My opposite in every way. I rang the bell and waited, shivering in the rain. When she finally opened the door, she looked as flawless as ever. Hair sleek and shiny, blouse tucked neatly into tailored pants, a glass of wine in one hand. Her lips curled into a faint smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Clara," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "This is a surprise." I swallowed, stepping inside when she gestured reluctantly. Her townhouse smelled like expensive candles and fresh paint, every surface gleaming. It was the kind of home I used to dream of having, back when dreams still felt possible. We sat in her living room. She didn't offer me a drink, didn't even ask if I was warm enough. She just perched on the arm of a chair, swirling her wine. "So," she said briskly, "what brings you here?" My hands trembled in my lap. I forced myself to look at her. I need help, Vanessa." Her eyebrow arched. "Help?" My car broke down. The repairs wiped out my savings, and now I'm behind on rent. I just need a little help to get through this month. A loan, maybe. I'd pay you back as soon as I can. I waited, my chest tight, my throat raw with shame. For a long moment, Vanessa just stared at me, her wine glass still. Then, slowly, she began to laugh. The sound cut through me like glass. "Clara," she said finally, her smile sharp as a blade. "You're 33 years old. You need to grow up." I blinked, stunned. "Excuse me. You heard me." She set her glass down with a sharp clink. "You've always been too soft. Always expecting someone else to pick up the slack. I've worked for everything I have, and now you want me to bail you out because you can't manage your own life? Well, grow up, Clara. Figure it out yourself." The words hit me harder than the rain outside ever could. My face burned, tears stinging the corners of my eyes. "Vanessa, I've been working non-stop." She waved a dismissive hand. "Working at what? Your little part-time jobs. Babysitting. Retail shifts. That's not work, Clara. That's playing at adulthood. You should have pushed harder years ago. Instead you coasted. And now you want me to fix it." Her voice dripped with scorn, every syllable pressing me further into the ground. "I'm not asking for charity," I whispered, my voice breaking. Enough." She stood, towering over me. "I don't have time for your endless problems. You want advice? Grow up. Stop being a burden. Until you do, don't come here again." And with that, she turned and walked toward the kitchen, her heels clicking against the polished floor. I sat frozen on the couch, my whole body trembling. My chest ached, my throat constricted, but I couldn't move. Finally, I rose on unsteady legs and walked out the door. The rain was still falling, cold and relentless, soaking me through again. But this time I barely felt it. I drove home in silence, the city lights blurring through my tears. Every word Vanessa had said replayed in my mind, cruel and cutting. Grow up. Stop being a burden. She didn't understand. She didn't want to understand. By the time I reached my apartment, my humiliation had curdled into something darker. Anger. All my life I had admired Vanessa, looked up to her, defended her. She had been my example, the one I measured myself against. And now she had humiliated me, dismissed me, called me a child in need of growing up. And worst of all, she enjoyed it. 2 nights later, I stopped by the cafe near Vanessa's office. I often went there after work to nurse a coffee and think. That night, I sat in the corner, my hands wrapped around the mug, when I heard a familiar laugh. Vanessa's laugh. Turned. She was sitting at a table with a colleague, her voice carrying easily. Clara came crawling to me again, she said, her tone dripping with amusement. Begging for money like always. Honestly, she'll never get anywhere. Some people are just stuck. And she's one of them. Meanwhile, I've got this job wrapped around my finger. Secure as can be. Her colleague laughed. You're lucky. Sounds like you've got it all. Vanessa raised her glass. To having it all. And to never being as pathetic as Clara. My stomach twisted, my cheeks flushed hot. I gripped my mug so tight I thought it might shatter. She thought I was pathetic. She thought she was untouchable. But she had no idea how wrong she was. Before we move on, take a second to hit subscribe and drop a comment. I'd love to hear what you think so far. The night I overheard Vanessa mocking me in that cafe, I went home and lay awake until morning. Her words echoed in my ears, louder than the traffic outside, sharper than the rain beating against the window. Pathetic, always begging, secure as can be. It wasn't just what she said. It was who she had always been to me. My older sister wasn't just family. She was the person I'd measured myself against for as long as I could remember. And suddenly, the scales of my memories shifted. I started seeing things I had ignored for years. Little cracks in the foundation of our relationship. Signs I had brushed off as jokes, as personality quirks, as Vanessa just being Vanessa. Now, in the dark, they glowed like warning flares. We grew up in a small town, in a modest 2-story house with creaky floors and flower beds my mother kept alive year after year. Vanessa was 3 years older than me, and from the start she was the star. She had the grades, the looks, the confidence. Teachers adored her. Coaches wanted her on their teams. When she walked into a room, people noticed. And me. I was quieter. I read books in corners. I drew in sketch pads while Vanessa performed in school plays. My report cards were good but never dazzling. I was steady, predictable. The kind of child who was praised for being no trouble. I used to think Vanessa's shine meant we all shared in the light. She was brilliant, then somehow I could be too just by being her sister. But as we grew older, I realized that light cast long shadows. And I was always standing in them. It wasn't as if Vanessa's life was perfect. I remember one winter when she was 19, home from her first semester at college. She had failed a class, a shock to everyone who had always seen her as flawless. She spent days moping in her room, curtains drawn, refusing to eat dinner with us. Mom tried to comfort her, but it was me who sat outside her door at night, slipping notes under the crack. You're still amazing. Everyone makes mistakes. Believe in you. Eventually she came out, mascara smudged and eyes red. She never thanked me directly, but she smiled faintly and ruffled my hair like we were kids again. That was enough for me. I thought it meant we had each other's backs. But the truth. She never remembered those moments when I was the one holding her together. There were always little comments. At family dinners, Vanessa would laugh and say, "Clara's the sensitive one. She cries over everything." Or, Clara's practical. She doesn't have the ambition gene. She said them with a smile, and everyone else would chuckle, thinking it was harmless teasing. And I'd smile too, because what else could I do? I told myself she didn't mean it, that she loved me underneath it all. But those words stuck. They sank deep. And over time I started to believe them. When Mom died, everything shifted. Vanessa was already living in the city, climbing her way into corporate life. I stayed behind, working local jobs, helping Dad sort through paperwork, selling the house when he decided to move south. I thought Vanessa would step up then, that she'd show me the same loyalty I had shown her when she struggled. But she didn't. She sent flowers to the funeral, gave a speech that made people cry, and then went back to her life. I was the one who stayed behind in the wreckage. I was the one who packed up Mom's things alone. I was the one who sat with Dad when the grief broke him open. Vanessa. She called sometimes, but her voice was always distracted, the background noise of city life drowning out any sincerity. Still, I clung to the belief that blood mattered, that she would be there if I really needed her. And that's why, when I walked into her townhouse that October night and asked for help, I expected something different. I expected the sister I had comforted when she failed her class. The sister I had defended when kids at school mocked her behind her back. The sister I had admired despite everything. Instead I got scorn. Instead I got laughter. Instead I got told to grow up. But as much as Vanessa wanted me to believe she had it all, little things didn't add up. The night at the cafe, after she mocked me, her colleague raised an eyebrow at something she said. Secure as can be, huh? That's not what I've been hearing. Vanessa froze for a split second before laughing it off. Rumors. You know how offices are. But I saw it. The flicker in her eyes. The tension in her shoulders. Later that week, I did what I had never done before. I snooped. I went online and looked up the company Vanessa worked for. Buried in an industry blog, I found a small article about layoffs. Restructuring, they called it. Entire departments under review. Job titles slashed. And there at the bottom a name I recognized. Vanessa's manager. Rumored to be on the chopping block. If her boss was gone, Vanessa's secure position might not be so untouchable after all. The next time I saw Vanessa, she was at a family gathering, glass of wine in hand, bragging loudly about her work. My job, please. They couldn't run the place without me. I'm practically untouchable. She laughed, tossing her hair back, and everyone else laughed with her. But I saw the flicker in her eyes again. The same one I had caught in the cafe. And in that moment, a thought rooted itself in me like a seed. Maybe Vanessa wasn't as invincible as she thought. Hang on, before I tell you what happened next, make sure you've subscribed and left your thoughts in the comments. This part gets intense. The more I thought about Vanessa's words at that cafe, pathetic, always begging, the more they dug under my skin. I told myself I wouldn't go back to her, that I'd rather drown than be humiliated again. But the truth, I was desperate. Rent was due in 2 days. My car was still in the shop, my shifts at work were getting cut, and I had nothing left. So I went back. It was a Saturday morning. Vanessa was already dressed like she was on her way to a gala. Hair pinned up, blazer pressed sharp, lips painted red. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, she smirked. Clara, she said, her tone dripping with fake surprise. Again. I swallowed my pride. Vanessa, please. I just need help this once. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I promise. She leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. You don't get it, do you? Life isn't about begging people to save you. It's about making yourself useful. I am useful, I said, my voice shaking. I work every day. I've done everything I can. I'm drowning, Vanessa. And you're my sister. Can't you just? She cut me off with a laugh. My sister. You've used that as a shield your whole life. You think blood entitles you to my money, my time, my success. It doesn't. My chest ache. I've always been there for you. Do you remember when you failed that class in college? I was the one who stayed up with you, encouraging you. When Mom died, I was the one who packed her things while you were off in the city. I've carried this family more than you ever have. For a moment, her face hardened. Then slowly she smiled, cruel and sharp. You should have learned then, Clara. You're the pack mule. I'm the one who gets ahead. The words sank like stones in my stomach. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Grow up, she said again, enunciating each word like a command. Stop acting like a child. I turned and walked away. My vision blurred with tears. My legs felt like they were carrying me through water, heavy and slow. Every step away from her house felt like a step deeper into humiliation. That night, I lay on my couch in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My rent notice was on the table, the red lettering screaming at me. I thought about all the times I'd helped Vanessa, how I'd believed she would return the favor one day. I had nothing left. No money. No pride. No sister. The silence of my apartment pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. I buried my face in my hands and sobbed. Raw, broken sobs that shook my whole body. It was the lowest I had ever been. But sometimes rock bottom is where the shift begins. 2 days later, fate handed me something I hadn't expected. I was working a short shift at a local library, organizing stacks of resumes for a community career workshop. I thumbed through folder after folder, my mind numb, when a name caught my eye. Vanessa Hayes. My breath caught. My sister's resume. She had apparently been part of a mentoring program years back, and her application was still on file. Curious, and maybe a little spiteful, I pulled it aside. The dates didn't line up. Her degree listed a major she never actually studied. She claimed experience at a company that, as far as I knew, had gone bankrupt years before she even graduated. 'Twas a lie. Piece after piece, the truth crystallized. Vanessa had fabricated parts of her resume to climb the ladder. She had built her career not just on ambition but on deception. My pulse quickened. I sat there, holding the pages, my hands trembling. The sister who mocked me for being pathetic. The sister who sneered that I was a child for asking for help. The sister who called her job untouchable. Her entire career was built on a lie. That night I couldn't sleep. The knowledge throbbed in my chest like a heartbeat. Vanessa wasn't invincible. She wasn't untouchable. She was vulnerable. And I was the only one who knew the truth. I imagined confronting her with it, throwing the resume on her kitchen counter, watching her smug face crack. I imagined telling her company, watching her lose everything she lorded over me. But a small voice whispered, "Are you really going to do this to your own sister?" Another voice answered, "She already did it to you." I turned onto my side, staring into the darkness. My whole body buzzed with anger, shame, and something new. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. A week later I walked past Vanessa's office building. It loomed tall and gleaming, a glass tower full of ambition and arrogance. And as I stood there staring at it, one thought burned in my mind. I wasn't going to let her cruelty stand. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me again. If she thought she was untouchable, I would prove just how wrong she was. And I knew exactly where I would start. Before we go any further, click subscribe and let me know in the comments. What would you have done in my shoes? The day I realized Vanessa's career was built on lies, everything inside me shifted. For years I had walked in her shadow, swallowing her mockery, letting her words shape the way I saw myself. Pathetic. A burden. But holding that resume in my hands, seeing the false dates and fabricated jobs, I realized something that shook me to my core. Vanessa wasn't better than me. She wasn't stronger, smarter, or more deserving. She was just better at pretending. And now I had the proof. The first thing I did was make copies. Dozens of them. I scanned the resume into my laptop, emailed it to a private account, printed hard copies, and even hid one inside an old cookbook in my kitchen drawer. I wasn't about to lose the one piece of leverage that could unravel everything Vanessa had built. But one resume wasn't enough. I needed more. So I started digging. Quietly, carefully. I scoured LinkedIn, cross-referencing the companies Vanessa claimed to have worked at. One of them had shut down 2 years before she supposedly left. Another had merged, and the timeline didn't match the job title she flaunted. Piece by piece, her story fell apart. And the more I uncovered, the steadier I felt. The shame she had dumped on me began to dissolve, replaced by something else. Steel. But revenge isn't easy, not even when it's justified. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my chest tight with guilt. Was I really going to expose my own sister? Was I really prepared to be the one who ripped her safety net away? I thought about the years when we were little, when she braided my hair before school, when we whispered secrets under the blankets, when we made Mom breakfast on Mother's Day with burnt toast and orange juice. Those memories hurt. They reminded me of a bond that once existed. But then I remembered her laughter. Grow up, Clara. You're pathetic. I remembered sitting on her couch, drenched in rain, humiliated and dismissed. And I knew. Vanessa had already destroyed the bond. I was only answering her cruelty with truth. I wasn't reckless. I knew if I went straight to her company with accusations, they might dismiss me as jealous, vindictive. I needed something undeniable. So I called an old acquaintance. Marcy, a woman I'd met years earlier through a volunteer group who, by sheer luck, happened to work in Vanessa's department. We met for coffee. At first, Marcy was polite but guarded. But when I asked how things were going at work, her expression shifted. Honestly, she said, lowering her voice. It's a mess. Vanessa talks big, but half the time, other people clean up her mistakes. She's late on reports, misses deadlines, and takes credit for things she didn't do. People are fed up. My pulse quickened. Has anyone said anything to management? Marcy shrugged. She's good at covering herself. And she's loud. You know how that goes. But trust me, if someone looked close enough they'd see. I nodded slowly, hiding my satisfaction. That must be hard for the rest of you. Marcy sighed. Yeah. There are people here who work twice as hard and never get noticed, while Vanessa struts around like she owns the place. That was all I needed to hear. With every conversation, every bit of evidence, my plan sharpened. I wasn't just going to expose Vanessa. I was going to take the very thing she lorded over me, her job, her security, her sense of superiority, and tear it out from under her. But not for myself. Well, that would have been too easy. Too expected. Instead, I would hand it to someone more deserving. Someone like Marcy. Someone who had been overlooked while Vanessa lied her way to the top. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was justice. The opportunity came sooner than I thought. Marcy called me one evening, excitement in her voice. Hey, Clara, they're opening a new position in my department. Same level as Vanessa. It's going to be competitive. You should apply. I laughed bitterly. Me. They'd never take me seriously. But she pressed. Clara, you're organized, reliable, and you care. That's more than half the people there. Just apply. What's the worst that can happen? I sat with the idea for a long time. The thought of walking into Vanessa's world, into her fortress, was terrifying. But it was also the perfect stage. So I did it. I polished my resume, focusing on the work I'd actually done. Tutoring, counseling, organizing community programs, balancing impossible schedules. Skills no one had praised me for, but skills nonetheless. When I walked into that interview room weeks later, my heart pounded so loud I thought the panel could hear it. But as I spoke, something strange happened. The nerves melted away. I was calm, clear, confident. And when I walked out, I saw it on their faces. They were impressed. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. A voicemail blinked, waiting for me. With trembling hands, I pressed play. "Hello, Ms. Hayes. This is HR from Fairmont and Company. We were very impressed with your interview. We'd like to discuss the next steps. Please call us back at your earliest convenience." My breath caught. I had done it. I had stepped into Vanessa's fortress, and now I was inside. She had no idea the walls were about to crumble. Real quick, subscribe and share your thoughts below before we get to the part that still makes my heart race. The morning I walked back into Fairmont and Company, the company my sister had bragged about for years, the air felt electric. My palms were damp, my heart pounding, but beneath it all was a cold steadiness. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking into a room as Clara, the shadow, the pathetic younger sister. I was walking in with power. Vanessa didn't even know the storm was coming. HR had invited me to a second interview, this time with senior management. It was meant to be a formality, a chance to finalize things. But as I sat in that glass-walled conference room, waiting for them to arrive, I realized I had more than just an opportunity to earn a job. I had the chance to expose my sister for what she really was. When the panel entered, I straightened my shoulders and smiled politely. We talked about teamwork, about values, about integrity. And then, just as the interview was wrapping up, the door opened. Vanessa walked in. She froze when she saw me. "Clara!" The panel turned. One of the executives smiled. "Vanessa, good timing. We're considering Clara for the new role. Since you've worked here for years, perhaps you can share your perspective." Her face twitched. For the first time, I saw her composure falter. She plastered on a fake smile and slid into a chair. "Clara, here. That's unexpected." I met her eyes. Steady. "Yes, unexpected." The executives looked between us, curious. "Since you're sisters, this could be interesting. Vanessa, how would you describe Clara's abilities?" I watched her struggle. If she praised me, she risked making me look good. If she insulted me, she risked looking unprofessional. He chose the latter. "Well," she said lightly, "Clara's sweet. But she's not exactly leadership material. She tends to rely on others. Not very independent." The words burned, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I opened my binder and slid a folder across the table. "Funny," I said, my voice calm. "Because I've been very independent when it comes to supporting myself, my family, and even picking up responsibilities others abandoned. Unlike some people, who needed to lie to get ahead." Vanessa's head snapped toward me. "What did you just say?" I didn't break eye contact. I said, unlike some people, I didn't fabricate my career. The executives frowned. "Fabricate?" I slid the copied resume across the table. The one with the false dates, the non-existent company. "This is Vanessa Hayes's original resume. The one she used to get hired here. You'll notice the discrepancies." Silence fell. Heavy. Cold. The executives leaned forward, scanning the pages. One of them muttered, This company closed years before she claims she worked there." Another said, "And this degree, these dates don't match." Vanessa's face drained of color. This is fake. She's lying. Clara forged this." But the HR representative shook their head slowly. "We have this on file, Vanessa. From your initial application." Her mouth opened then closed. For once, no words came. The meeting ended abruptly. They asked Vanessa to wait outside. I could see her through the glass wall, pacing like a caged animal, her face pale, her movements frantic. When the executives came back, their expressions were grim. "Clara," one said gently, "thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll be reviewing the matter immediately. As for the new position, your interview was excellent. But before we proceed, We'll need to resolve this situation. I nodded, my heart steady. Of course. Hours later I got the call. Vanessa had been terminated for falsifying her credentials. Effective immediately. The job she had bragged about, the fortress she had built on lies, crumbled in a single day. When I showed up at her townhouse that evening, she was sitting on the floor, surrounded by half-packed boxes, mascara smudged, eyes wild. "You did this," she hissed when she saw me. "You destroyed me." I stood in the doorway, the new keys to my repaired car jingling in my pocket, my rent already covered thanks to an advance from Fairmont for future employment consideration. "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. I just showed the truth." She shot to her feet, trembling with rage. "You're pathetic, Clara. You'll always be pathetic." I took a step closer, my voice calm, even. "You told me to grow up. So I did. And growing up means not letting people like you step on me anymore." She froze, her face contorting. "And for the record," I added, "I didn't take your job for myself. I recommended someone who actually deserved it. Someone who works hard without lying. Someone like Marcy." Her mouth dropped open. "You what? Your job is gone. Your title is gone. And it's going to someone who earned it. That's what justice looks like, Vanessa." Her eyes burned with fury, but she said nothing. For once, she had no power left to wield. That night, as I sat in my apartment with the windows open and the autumn breeze drifting in, I felt lighter than I had in years. Vanessa thought she could crush me with words. She thought she could use her job, her success, her fabricated image to make me small. But the truth is stronger than lies. She told me to grow up. And I did. And in doing so, I took the one thing she valued most and handed it to someone who deserved it. She'll remember that for the rest of her life. And so will I. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If you found yourself holding your breath, if you felt my pain and my victory, then I'd love for you to stay with me for the next story. Subscribe to the channel today. And together we'll keep uncovering the truths people try to hide.